Hi guys and welcome back to History Help for You. Today we're going to be doing Edward VI, so that's the start of the year 13 con for Tudors, and we're going to be talking through Somerset. So, when Edward first came to the throne, he was a minority, he was 9 years old. As a result, Henry VIII, his dad, made a regency council which would essentially rule on Edward's behalf until he was old enough to do anything. And Edward's uncle, Edward Seymour, who then became Somerset, he was essentially the main guy in charge. He promoted himself to Lord Protector because of his influence over Edward, and essentially took control of England while Edward was still a young boy. England at the time was struggling with a lot of stuff. First of all, financially, because of the policies of Henry VIII, especially on foreign policy, spending over £2 million on war with France alone. Religious issues with England being Catholic and teaching, yet still separate from the Catholic Church in Rome, following the break from Rome during Henry VIII, and also growing social and economic issues with issues about enclosure, the food supply, and also debasement of the coinage. Government-wise, he was in a way dictatorial, but surrounded himself with reformers, and also rewarded those who supported him. However, within his time in power, he did endure quite a lot of factional infighting, and he even had his own brother executed for trying to seize power. Bit of a nice guy. He also angered many men in court because if he didn't like them, he essentially just cut them out of politics entirely, so they couldn't do anything. Foreign policy. So as we saw when we were doing Henry VIII, and his main target was France, and he was very aggressive towards France. Somerset, on the other hand, his main target was Scotland, and he was wanted to be very, very aggressive against Scots. His initial idea was, I'm going to build a bunch of garrisons and forts within Scotland, so I can force the Scots into... Sorry, I've said Scots. So he can force the Scots into submission by essentially squeezing them out. And he did have some short-term, short-term victories within Scotland, like the Battle of Pinkie in 1547. However, Somerset's whole idea of, I'm going to use garrisons, I'm going to use forts, this ultimately failed. They were too expensive and too difficult to fortify. And England were also unable to capture significant castles like Dunbar and Edinburgh. Also, I'm not sure if I've already mentioned this. I hope I have. There was an old alliance, an old alliance between France and Scotland. Essentially, they're quite close. They're allies. Whenever Scotland are in trouble, France comes. Whenever France are in trouble, Scotland comes. France came to the aid of Scotland, and also made a marriage alliance between Queen Mary and the heirs of the French throne. Economy, as already said, the economy is not looking too good. Somerset further debased the coinage, furthering inflation, but earning £537,000 as a result, also benefiting him, messing up England as a result. There was also issues with enclosure and harvest failures, which meant that food prices went up dramatically. There was a commission set up to investigate enclosure, but nothing was really achieved. And Somerset believes that the real driving force behind this was the switch to sheep farming. As a result, he put in a sheep tax to try and deter enclosure, but this actually sort of worsened the situation, not because more people did it, but because it put more financial pressure on those who relied heavily on sheep farming, like small farmers. And these factors will also essentially contribute to the Ketch Rebellion, which we'll learn in a second. Religion-wise, Edward, as a king, he was very Protestant. As a result, Somerset passed religious legislation, being Protestant himself as well, essentially killing two birds with one stone. But both Protestants passed Protestant legislation. So in February 1547, he passed the denunciation of images in London, which essentially tried getting rid of all the religious images and icons within churches, which was seen as a Catholic feature. In July, he issued the injunctions, which further attacked more features of Catholicism, like more images, stained glass, and lights. In December 1547, he dissolved all chantries and religious guilds. This also killed two birds with one stone. This was done to retrieve money, so to benefit the Crown's income and Somerset directly. And was also a further attack on Catholicism. There was also the Treason Act, which was passed in 1547, allowing religious issues to be openly discussed and completely removing any sort of censorship. And in 1549, there was a Book of Common Prayer introduced, which essentially laid out how prayer should be carried along, how it should be done, and this would ultimately lead to the Western Rebellion, which was created in response to dislike of the Book of Common Prayer. It's also known as the Prayer Book Rebellion. It was also partly due to socio-economic reasons, like the sheep tax. So the rebels were mainly Catholic. They wanted to keep the prayer book and church services in Latin. The events, you don't really need to know the events, you sort of just need to know the cause, which was the Book of Common Prayer. But they moved to Exeter and besieged the city for 6 weeks, but then Somerset sent troops to sort them out, and they were hung and quartered. Lovely. And Kett's Rebellion, as I spoke about when we were talking about the economic side, it was created in response to socio-economic reasons like the sheep tax, inflation, unemployment, and the impact of enclosure. The rebels were able to take Norwich. Initially, Somerset sends an army down with the Earl of Northampton, who actually fails to essentially defeat the rebels, and then sent forces under the Earl of Northumberland, who we'll find out quite soon because he's replaces Somerset, but we'll find out later about that. And Northumberland retook the city, killed about 3,000 rebels, and left Kent to die. Downfall. Somerset was quite arrogant, making him a lot of enemies at court, as well as his corruption, which helps contribute to this. Oh my lord, sorry guys. John Dudley, aka Northumberland, had shown a lot more decisive leadership. Essentially, they wanted to replace Somerset with Northumberland because they thought, yeah, he'd be better. Faced with a choice of civil war, it was pretty much there was going to be a civil war if Somerset didn't turn himself in. It'd either be those who supported Somerset versus those who didn't like him, or sort of within that group as those who wanted to replace him with Northumberland. He handed himself in, was arrested in 1549, was hit to execute in 1552. Sorry guys. This was primarily due to his domestic and religious policies, which failed, as we can see by the Western Kett's Rebellion, and also failings with foreign policy, like failures in Scotland, while he had like that victory with the Battle of Pinkie. Everything else foreign related sort of just went downhill. That's it for Edward. That's it for Somerset and Edward. We'll be moving on to Northumberland next video. I'll be Edward done because Edward was not in power for very long. So we'll cover Northumberland and then that'll lead straight into Mary. So thanks guys, I'll see you in the next video.